It's already time for another episode of No, seriously, what the f is happening in Darktide? Because of new content. That's right, we've got another new lore update right on the heels of the huge Nightmares and Visions story. Is anyone else feeling particularly seen by Fatshark right now? Granted, this is a much smaller dosage of lore. It's around a minute of actual voice lines, but it gives us some intriguing insight into the activities and quite possibly key details like the names of the leaders of Tersham's true threat, the Cult of Admonition. Obey my cat! Hit the subscribe button. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, the fact that there's new lore in Darktide, it's part of a limited time event running right now called Communication Breakdown. In this event, missions on the regular mission board that have the Inquisition symbol on them for both standard and Auric level operations have a special auspex scanner that can be found throughout the maps. The potential spawn locations for these special auspex scanners are the same places that scripture and grimoire books can normally be found in the missions. When you find a scanner and pick it up, it goes into the equipment slot normally reserved for stims. You'll want to hold on to it until your team has a lull where there's no hordes or monstrosities spawning, and if you want to hear the lines for yourself, try to tuck yourself into a corner away from your teammates because they are incredibly hard to hear. Pull out your auspex scanner and start the minigame. This is a unique minigame where you'll see two wave patterns, a yellow one and a green one. You'll use the controls indicated on the screen to adjust the yellow wave pattern to match it with the green waves, and when you've done it, you'll hear the sound change from static and feedback noise to voice lines.
Lector Cathorus.
The volume on the voice lines from the auspex scanner are really quiet compared to all the other voice lines, including your team. So if you want to listen to these for yourself in-game, I highly recommend you play on a lower difficulty level and be as far away from your teammates as you reasonably can, because their voice lines are going to be screaming over the auspex sounds.
Warp spawned mutation!
Alright, now that we all know how to literally access this content, what kind of juicy new details do we get?
If Lector Cathorus bids it be done, then so shall it be. Will you really refuse him?
Right out of the gate, we have a new character, Lector Cathorus. Now, Lector is likely not this person's first name. Instead, Lector is a title, specifically one of the highest ranks that can be bestowed within a cult. It's also a real-life title that can be bestowed on people within religious organizations, especially the Catholic Church, which 40K is heavily inspired by. The idea that Cathorus is a high-ranking member of a cult is supported by the second part of the line.
Will you really refuse him?
This is a character that people within this organization that we're listening in on respect and fear.
I'm sure the noble houses believe they have us infiltrated. They are wrong.
In this snippet, we're hearing members of this cult that sound very sure of themselves that they have evaded infiltration by the Hive's noble houses, and this makes it almost certain that these snippets of conversation and orders are from within the Cult of Admonition, and that will become more apparent as these voice lines go on. It also makes it likely that if the cult believes themselves to not be infiltrated by the noble houses, Admonition is probably also a heretical cult that has been hiding in plain sight within Tertium, pretending to be a non-heretical imperial cult. At least that would have been how they were presenting themselves before the events of Darktide. By the time our rejects get to districts like the Carnival and the Torrent, Admonition has become pretty blatant in their messaging. You can find local voxcasts calling residents of Tertium followers of the false emperor and encouraging them to do things like free themselves from the shackles of Factorum work and escape the yoke of the Imperium. At that point, I'd say they're less trying to pass themselves off as a loyal imperial cult and just blatantly outright being openly chaotic. This detail actually makes me think these voice lines that we are intercepting are actually earlier in Admonition's rise. It could be that it's intended these are live conversations as we intercept them, but the fact that each instance of voice lines are completely distinct and separate from each other, not a continued conversation or even part of the same overall plot thread, makes it more reasonable to examine these as a a glimpse into Admonition's past. Fatshark does have a history of giving us Darktide's story out of sequence, and there's also the ongoing theme of private conversations being intercepted by spies unknown through Vox intercepts. These intercepts have happened both to our warband and heretical forces, so perhaps these snippets of Admonition insight were also intercepts that were recorded and being broadcast to us through these special scanners. Just some food for thought as we continue to move through these voice lines.
You see him, down in the square. The telltale shimmer of a falsehood. Follow. Report on what he learns.
Oh man, this one is packed with possibilities and almost nothing concrete. Let's start with what we can pretty certainly glean. Someone from Admonition is observing a character they know to be male from some elevated vantage point. This unnamed male character being watched seems to be employing some kind of cloaking device. The telltale shimmer of a falsehood could be metaphorical, I guess, but it feels pretty blatant that the intention is to indicate there is someone trying to not be seen moving through the square. And this would be very possible. There's a variety of ways a person could very reasonably have access to cloaking technology, not the least of which is the Camelioline cloak that's used within the Astra Militarum, as well as amongst Astartes. Now, who is the man being watched even though he does not want to be seen? That's really anybody's guess. It could be a Wormwood agent. It could be Swagger. It could be Morrow. It could be Rannick or Brunt or hell, even Grendyl himself. It could be a character we've yet to be aware even exists. But if the eyes of Admonition are upon him so keenly, he is almost certainly their enemy and probably part of the warband. My gut is actually saying it's probably Grendyl for reasons we'll discuss soon.
Urmal keeps Cathorus in check. But for how long?
Urmal is a character that's part of Admonition, and she is likely one of the three that are at the helm of the cult. She is keeping Lector Cathorus, a person who as a Lector is also basically at the top tier of cult leadership himself, in check. So who is Lector Cathorus? I think he's another one of the three, and I think that he's a character we've actually already met. At this point in time, I'd put money that Lector Cathorus is likely the name of the mysterious priest that named Rinda the Herald of Admonition, and that we heard in the Terror in the Dark event in 2024 when Rinda was revealed as back from the dead and would ambush us in event missions with a darkness modifier.
Seeking answers, though they know not the question. I leave them to you, sister. Test them as you see fit.
Okay, so how is Urmal keeping him in check? Well, the good Lector seems to be a bit ruthless when it comes to his management style.
Lector Cathorus excommunicated the Krasgate congregation tonight. No warning, no mercy.
Using our context clues, I think it's pretty safe to say that the inclusion of no warning, no mercy in this case means that it wasn't so much an excommunication that took place as it was a mass murder. Mr. Cathorus might be a man with a tendency to fly off the handle and just get rid of a whole cult cell simply because he feels like it. Or maybe purging an entire congregation is how the rest of Admonition can be so sure they're not infiltrated by spies.
I hear whispers about the great House Margrave. What does it conceal?
That's a really good question. What is House Margrave hiding? Why would you bring that up? What the fuck does this mean? They could be concealing anything. I've always felt Swagger is most likely a noble-born man. Could it have something to do with him? If Admonition doesn't know, but they have suspicions about something, it probably doesn't have to do with the Nurgle incursion. So just go ahead and add this to the list of things in Darktide that keeps me awake at night.
We must keep Grendyl blind. Suspicion is bad enough. Knowledge would be intolerable.
We've known for a while that Grendyl has been in Tertium itself while the events of Darktide have been unfolding, but now it seems we've got a little more detail on exactly where he's been. Grendyl has been out sniffing around Admonition's door, at the very least having interacted with the members, if not hanging around as a semi-permanent guest amongst the upper echelons of their organization. And they are very concerned he's on to them, which goes back to this voice line.
You see him, the telltale shimmer of a falsehood. Follow. Report on what he he learns.
I think the man the eyes of Admonition were upon here was Grendyl. They're watching him intently, following his every move to ensure the damage can be controlled if he were to find solid evidence that this cult is not the Imperial cult they seem to be. But they wouldn't be so stupid as to kill the Inquisitor. If the cult was deep into their execution of the Siege of Tertium and worried that someone may be on the brink of discovering them, why have them followed and wait to see what they learn instead of just killing this man outright and being done with the worry? This would make perfect sense if the person they were watching was Inquisitor Grendyl. To kill such a high-ranking member of the Inquisition would be to invite even more meddling by Imperial forces to Tertium and risk the complete collapse of Admonition's plans.
Grendyl has informants everywhere. Make an example of any you uncover.
Now, unfortunately for the Wormwood operatives, Admonition does not have to exercise the same restraint when it comes to ending their lives. And we do know from the unreleased Vox intercepts that the Wormwood agents have all but gone silent across Tertium.
So, Wormwood 9.
Missed last night's scheduled check. Wormwood 4 hasn't submitted a report in 72 hours. Wormwood 5 is not responding to signals. Wormwood 7 is no longer showing an active locator. Wormwood 12 is...
Enough, I get it. All the Wormwood agents have gone dark.
Which means that this line we hear from the auspex scanner in Mission was likely given in the past before the events of the Dark Communion. We have been getting semi-regular updates from other Wormwood operatives, but Admonition has proven incredibly efficient at silencing them since the Warband arrived. This order we hear from the auspex in the event missions seems to be the inception of that campaign of silence.
We lost too many grimoires after the accursed Morrow stormed the cankered librarium. We must recover them.
I think that this is another point demonstrating that Admonition's grimoires are the cursed scriptures that they've been using to summon demon hosts. But even if I'm wrong and that's not the case, they're definitely of such importance to the cult that Admonition may end up bringing the fight to us in order to recover them. Also, Morrow mentioned getting shit done and being a total badass. That's our resident dad.
Durgle is truth, for without him death has no meaning and life no purpose.
Alright. This seems to be very standard Nurgle rhetoric. I kind of don't really know what the purpose of this line is even supposed to serve, except possibly to help reinforce that these are snippets of conversation from within Admonition.
The abyssal gate remains sealed, High Majestrix. It thwarts our every effort.
In 40k, when anything is referred to as abyssal, that's basically another term that means having to do with the warp. So what we're hearing here is most likely the middle managers of Admonition approaching the three leaders, who I'm assuming are the High Majestics. As things currently stand in characters that we know, I believe that these High Majestics would be Lector Cathorus, Urmal, and my personal favorite, question mark. These middle managers seem to be reporting on their progress toward opening this abyssal gate, which is most likely a warp rift. Given its title, it might even be a known place where the barrier between the warp and real space is weak on or near Atoma Prime, which is why this hive world has been chosen for trying to fulfill the mysterious prophecy that seems to be behind all of Admonition's motivations.
Had to seal off the Dragonda Street Temple. One of Urmal's experiments got out of hand, so they say.
What is this? What's Urmal's experiment? Is this something similar to the phase tree? The demonic growth? An early attempt of the Chaos Spawn? Plague Ogre? Demon Host? Something else? God damn it, it's so interesting but vague enough that I don't know what it's supposed to mean. Given that, again, all these lines seem to be decently early on when Admonition really started getting into the swing of their activities and revealing themselves, I'd wager that it's a line that's meant to start tipping in the direction of confirming that Urmal is responsible for creating the Chaos Spawns and possibly even Plague Ogre. There aren't many other ways to analyze this that make much sense to me, but that could always be turned on its head by future plot developments. And speaking of future plot developments, that is unfortunately where we'll now have to wait for more, because that's all the voice lines to be found in this event. Like I said in the start, it wasn't a lot, but it's still really interesting to get a little more information on the cult structure, major players, and what has been going on behind the scenes for them throughout Darktide. Darktide. What do you guys make of these little insights into the cult? What is House Margrave hiding? Was it Grendyl Admonition had been tailing? What's Urmal's experiment gone awry? Hopefully these curiosities will be expanded on in the next big Darktide update, and you bet your ass I'll be talking about it in a future installment of No, seriously, what the fuck is happening in Darktide? Join my inquisitorial retinue! Become a YouTube channel member or a Patreon member and come play off stream for footage sessions to have a chance to see your character in future videos. Or if you want more of a casual lore expansion experience, run some Havoc missions, or get some help completing some of those pesky private game only penances on your list, drop by the Darktide stream Saturdays at 12 p.m. Pacific and we'll purge some heretics while nerding out. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you out there against the Darktide. Thank you so much to my amazing supporters. Your guys' support and also your encouragement honestly keeps me going and means the world to me. Special shout out to my top tier supporters, Andrew Brown, Cabus, Leah S, Ben, Cameron, Dark Slide, Dr. Dead Inside, Bride's Biscuit, Kron Chaos, Daniel Gerber, Sir Pubert, Christopher Miller, Tim Vovis, Talking Mud Crab, Lurker, The Thunder Guardian, Aubrey Bessie, Freedom Frank, Macrove, and Big Guy.